I'm here with Joanne Gilchrist from God for Kids. Hello, Joanne.
Hello, nice to see you. Nice to be
I
here.
do run the risk as I'm talking of my wife saying, yes, what? Because her name is Joanne. So hopefully she won't respond just to really confuse
Yes.
matters, but it's all fine. Just give us a quick overview. What's God for Kids all about?
God for Kids started as an app, God for Kids app, and has grown from there to be a bunch of resources for children to help them connect with God, help them know God, study the Bible, but mostly to help parents, equip parents to share faith with their children.
Cool. Okay. Well, we'll come back to that at the end. Let's do a little bit of life stuff. So is God for Kids, is that all that you're doing at the moment? Or have you got, like so many people I speak to, have you got your fingers in a few different pies at the same time?
Well, it is my main thing. It is my main thing. Yes, I have three children who are very time consuming. Which is not a bad thing. But yeah, it is my main thing. The charity, the overarching charity is called Ruach Resources. But God for Kids is the main brand. Perhaps one day there'll be other brands under that charity, but for now it's the main one. But that itself is enough. It's not, it's an app, it's a book, it's lots of different resources. It's the marketing, it's the fundraising, it's the office management, the volunteer management, it's everything involved with running a charity. And building a brand and creating resources. It's enough.
It's enough. That's a good way of looking at it. Now, we met at the Hand in Hand conference in West Bromwich a while back. How was that for you as a conference?
Hand in Hand conference is a very important part of my life. I only went for the first time a couple of years ago, I think, the first one back after COVID. And it was quite a poignant moment for me because I hit a bit of a low in my personal capacity to keep going. When you, anybody who's ever been an entrepreneur or done something on their own or tried to do something new or self-employed is quite hard. And there's some low moments where you just want to pack it all in and give all up. And I hit that at the end of the conference I went to a few years ago. Not really the conference's fault, just because it is hard. It's hard exhibiting and selling yourself and or your stuff. And it doesn't matter how many people love it and say, yes, I want this. Every person who just walks past you and says, no, I'm not interested, is like a punch to the gut. So they're just hard. It's hard conferences and selling though. And I was ready to pack it in at the end of it. And yet the conversation I had afterwards, the next person I spoke to said that they felt God was prompting them to invite me to join the core team of Hand in Hand Conference going forward. He said God was telling him that I was going to be important. We didn't know why, but it was going to be important. And he invited me to be a part of that team. And that was one of many networks that God then connected me into in that year, 2 years ago. We joined a new church that was fabulously helpful, really supportive church. I love my church now. The one we were in before was much more difficult. And several other networks like that. And so when I went back to Hand in Hand conference last year, 2023, it was the fact that I was there was a testimony to God's faithfulness, because I didn't think I would make it another year in my ministry. And the fact that I was there was just amazing. And the fact that I was part of the core team meant that I wasn't doing it all myself, which is what you are doing when you run your own ministry, but I was part of a team. So I could just contribute my little bit to make the whole better, which I just love being part of that team. And then going back again this year in a new location was just such a buzz, from 2 years before when it was the last conference under the former leadership to this new location, much bigger, so many more delegates, so many exhibitors, so many people, such a buzz, such an atmosphere of just unity, creativity, the fact that everyone there had half children. I just thought it was the most amazing part. I'm so glad to be a part of the Hand in Hand conference.
I found this with various folk I've spoken to, is that you get to a place where you think, I can't do this anymore. And then you realize that you can get a bit further and a bit further, but there is at some point that sort of brick wall of, no, I really, really can't get past this anymore. And that's the point when we kind of go to God and say, I've had enough. And that's the moment that God says, yes, you really can, but now let's do it in my strength. And I think I've been there. I've met so many folk who do it, and you go on and go and go on. I mean, a conference in itself, forget what you're there to do. They're tiring because you're just always on the go. You're always ready to speak to people. You're talking to, I mean, we spoke to probably 40 different sets of people while we were walking around, and it's tiring. I mean, it was great fun. It's not a complaint or a negative. It's brilliant, but it's exhausting. That's just attending a conference, let alone having a stand. We're thinking, I need this stand to pay in one way or another, because it's going to be for my livelihood or for other people or for staff. So you've got all these then extra things that start to pile on top of you, which is, it sounds like in one way or another, that's where you hit in, was it 2023, where you just thought, this is hard. Was it 22? I've lost track of COVID.
No, yeah, 23, because it's, yeah, it would have been 23. Yeah.
But then you got invited into core team and things changed, which is really cool. I want to come back to Hand in Hand a little bit, because I found it really special for the simple reason that it's not like any other conference I've been to. And I know we can say that. I've been to the Gathering, which is a men's only festival, 18 plus. It's very much for guys that want to come, some of whom want to do the Christian stuff, some not. And it is wonderfully unique in its own right. But Hand in Hand is very much on the surface of it, very classic conference. And yet there was something special. And every person I spoke to, because this is one of the things I like to do, is how you find in the conference. And they all said, there's something special about this. We feel not like we're a bolted on bit that's just there to, pad the bottom line, which is a phrase I've heard frequently. But actually what they said is, we're part of this whole event. And I think that is what I found so special.
Was that exhibitors that gave you that feedback? Or see, that's just wonderful, because that's my particular role, I guess, within the core team, was to grow the exhibition and to invite exhibitors. And that was where my input was, because that's my experience as an exhibitor. And one of the first things I said in the core team is, so often as an exhibitor, you feel like you're just there to pay the bills. So we've really prioritized making it a positive experience for exhibitors, and that's why there's a from the minute an exhibitor arrives, they have a wonderful welcome. There's a team to help them set up. There's a team to carry their boxes. There's we try to look after their needs as much as we can. It's actually quite time consuming. It took me about 3 hours just to go around and say hello to all of the exhibitors, so it was quite time consuming, but so worthwhile. So thank you for that feedback. That's really lovely. It means we did it. So we did exactly what we set out to do. Yes.
People felt like they were part of the team. We've been at a few exhibitions and conferences, and the Gathering in particular, we were part of the team. We were there doing videos and live radio for them, and we very much felt that we are part of what's going on, in a sense bolted on, but we never felt like that, because we were part of helping them spread the message of their festival, which was great. So yeah, that was something. I mean, people talk to me because I seem to ask good questions. I guess it's my job, really. But they were sharing that. So it was literally that. We feel like a bolt on. We're just paying the bills. And actually, they all said, we feel like we are part of the family of Hand in Hand. And it was so exciting as they went. But that was so many times. I spoke to probably 40 groups of people. And in one way or another, there was that comfort or that level of happiness or confidence or in feeling included that came out from it. And some of them were very specific. We feel like we're part of the team rather than a bolted on add-on.
Brilliant. That's fantastic. Thank you.
So well done for that. Right, let's go back a little bit in time. You've mentioned church ruach, which I would immediately think of as a Christian term, which some people may or may not know. We can come back to that as well. But what was your life growing up? Where did faith fit into your childhood as you became an adult? Where did faith fit into all of that?
Well, my memory as a child, I was around about four years old, sitting on my mum's bed. She read a little booklet to me. We argue about which one it was. I thought it was one about Adam and Eve. She says it was the one called Jesus Loves You. Doesn't really matter. There was a little prayer at the end, the traditional sinner's prayer. And I remember my mummy saying, "Do you want to read this?" And I said, no, I was too embarrassed. But then she left the room, went downstairs to the kitchen, and I read it by myself. I was a very early reader. And that was my first experience of giving my heart to Jesus as a 4-year-old. And it was as valid, I think, as any other experience, because I've never looked back. I've never really changed from that. And I remember the very next thing I did is I went downstairs and I told my mum, I've just prayed that prayer. And she was all pleased and gave me a hug. And then I went and found my little sister, who was only 2, and said, "You need to pray this prayer too." And of course, she has no memory of that because she was just a 2-year-old doing what her big sister told us to do. But I've recently come across the idea that quite often our calling and our ministry in life is often reflected in those early experiences of coming to faith and coming to Christ. And that's absolutely true. When I look back at that experience, that's such a formative experience, because I spend my life creating resources that help children and adults have that conversation and bring them to a point where they want to, follow Jesus for themselves, whatever that looks like when you're 4. And then my first thing I did was went and told somebody else about Jesus. And that's always been a calling on my heart. Evangelism has always been, I've always felt that God's called me to be an evangelist, however that looks like. It doesn't look the same for everybody. So it's never really looked back. I was brought up in I was brought up in an evangelical church. My mum told me that she had to wait till 10 p.m. to get me dedicated, because it was at one of those times when they would just have services that just went on and on and on and on and on and on. So my mum was sitting there, poor woman, with this baby till 10 p.m. to get dedicated. But then when I was 8, we moved to rugby. I went to Rugby Elim, it's called now, an Elim church. So I was brought up Pentecostal, really. And I was part of Elim Church in New Zealand, in Tauranga, where I lived after I got married. And I worked with YWAM for a number of years, did a gap year with them and worked with them for a number of years before getting stuck into my local church. And then when we moved to Sheffield, we actually went to an Anglican Baptist church and then a Baptist church. And now we're in a community church, which I think is part of the gospel. I forgot what it's called. I forgot what it's called.
It's fine.
The Ground Level Network. Okay. That's it.
Yep, I know that.
Yeah.
My 3 boys, very similar experiences to you. My oldest 2, both aged 4 when they chose to follow Christ. My youngest, it was the day before his 4th birthday, because he likes to be a little bit different. And a few people says, "Oh no, that's rubbish. He's far too young. Can't happen." And I said, "Well, you weren't there." But what we saw most vividly with my youngest, we saw it with the older 2, but it was so crystal clear with my youngest one, is that when he had faith and he did his first thing that he did that wasn't good, we didn't tell him off. We didn't say that was naughty. What we said was, well, that wouldn't make Jesus happy. He burst into tears. He's like, "Oh, that's terrible." And his whole attitude changed of, I just want to do the right thing to make God happy. So we didn't have to tell him off as such. It's like, well, I don't think Jesus would approve of that. And that was it. And it was such a transformative difference in his life. And I have met people, I came to faith at 7, far too young, not possible. Well, do you know what? It is possible. I've worked in children's ministry. It's actually very easy for younger children to want to choose faith. There was I think it was the Independent, or the Telegraph, years ago, wrote an article on how children have an inherent belief of a higher power, is how they were wording. It's not a Christian article, but they were referencing so many ways. God, they believe in God from birth, basically. And then we kind of educate it out of them as they go through their primary school years, 5 to 10 years, and then 10 to 15, it's like battered out of them almost, because we educate out faith. And yet children are growing with that natural desire to want to have a relationship with the Lord Jesus Christ.
That's right. And we all know that faith grows with a person. So obviously my faith as a 42-year-old woman is not the same as it was when I was 4. And there have been other formative experiences and moments that I could talk about throughout my teenage years. And I do think those years, the 10 to 12 is a very important formative time, where you have to where you kind of have to renew your faith a few times to say, okay, now as a 10-year-old, now as a 12-year-old, now as a teenager, I choose to continue in this. And that's what faith is. That's what maturity is. It's growing up. Yeah.
Always taught my boys, there's nothing wrong with doubting. Because I remember sometimes it was like, don't doubt, you mustn't doubt. If you're doubting, that's terrible. And actually, I've always taught them, to doubt is a good thing, because when you doubt, you question. It's not good to doubt and stop, doubt and question, and then, seek the answer to that. But actually, doubt is really good. But I still love that my 4-year-old, it was 3 and 1 day short of 4 years old. It was somebody else in a children's church. They said, "Your son has to become a Christian today." He said he needs to. It's really important to him. And I just think, I love the fact that he was a whole Peter-led conversation to the children's church person who I knew who came and told us. And it was that's so amazing, because the other 2, we kind of had conversations with them, but we don't have the same experience of coming to faith, do we?
No, yeah, everyone's experience is different, of course, yeah, and unique. Yeah.
So you've got a faith. You've lived in New Zealand. Why? Why were you in New Zealand?
We went out with YWAM to begin with, Youth with a Mission. I did a degree in public relations at Bournemouth University, and it was a sandwich degree. And actually, sandwich degrees were still quite a new concept at the time. And I'd already done a gap year, a traditional gap year, and I'd done it with the Baptists. I was a action teamer, and it had been a very difficult, very challenging experience. You know, as an 18-year-old set off in the world for the first time, I had very high expectations. I'm going to change the world, and it was a really, really tough year. And at the end of it, as part of my processing that tough year, I remember I went to church and my pastor was preaching, and he was just saying, sometimes we have these experiences that are really tough and really challenging, but don't let that set the tone for the next, forever. Give it another go. And I was like, okay, God, I've had this really tough year. This was I felt called to be a missionary since I was about 16 or maybe younger, 15, 16. My first experience as a missionary was so the opposite of what I was hoping for. But I felt God saying, don't write it off. Don't let that be the definitive experience. Don't let that be the end of the story. So I was like, okay, I'll give it another go. And I met some YWAMers at university, and I looked into the option of spending my sandwich year with them. So I did PR for YWAM National England, YWAM England, in the national office in Harpenden. And that was the experience that I was looking for, I think, on my gap year. I was part of a community at the time that the base was, the people, it was thriving. There was so much going on. We had these guest speakers from all over the world. It would just bring these most amazing messages. I was living in a community, which for me was I just loved it. It was just wonderful. I loved that year. It was the best year of my life up to that point. And I met my husband that year too, which was pretty cool. I volunteered at Spring Harvest with King's Kids, and he was there as well. So by the end of that year, I was engaged, and I thought my missionary days would be, I was like, okay, well, what does that mean with my call to mission? What does that look like? But now that I've joined with this other person and our lives now need to live together, and thankfully God dislodged him from where he was, and together we had no plans, no future. So we prayed like, God, where should we go? Where can we go? And I really wanted to do a DTS with YWAM. I'd spent a year selling the discipleship training school, DTS, to everybody. So I really wanted to do it. And I was like, I don't care where it is. You pick where. I just want to do it. And he picked the one in Fiji, which, thank the Lord, was moved to New Zealand, because that is the year I discovered that my call to mission doesn't look like the traditional hot third world country working with street children kind of mission that I assumed having a call to mission would look like, because I do not cope well in hot environments at all. I just melt like ice cream and I'm useless to everybody. And that's where I discovered, okay, wherever my call is going to be lived out, it's going to be in a cold climate, not in a hot one.
I have a similar thing. I'm allergic to the sun, so I have to be really, really careful. So I always thought, okay, I remember, I don't know, this thing, I was brought up as a Baptist, I know these things. If you say where you want to go, God won't send you. So you've got to be open and willing. So I say, please, God, send me to the hottest places in the world, on the assumption that he wouldn't send me to those, which is a bit immature and naive.
Reverse psychology with the Lord.
Which,
yeah, how did that work?
I didn't go. I went to Manchester for my year, and it was a great year. I remember saying, "Lord, anywhere but a Pentecostal church," because I was very much Baptist at the time, and I had the most amazing year in this Pentecostal church, East Manchester, in Droylsden, and it was brilliant. It was really formative. It was not what I wanted to do at all, that place, because I knew Manchester already. My grandparents are there. I just wanted to go somewhere I hadn't been, but somewhere I hadn't been that I could kind of feel comfortable. To Manchester, which was actually quite good for me. But yeah, I love how we we have these thoughts about what it's going to be, and yet when we actually allow God to get hold of the dream that he gives us, the vision he gives us, the amazing gifts we've got, all of a sudden it becomes much more than we ever dreamed possible, which is what it sounds like happened to you in New Zealand.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing. It was tough though. It was quite difficult. Moving country immediately after getting married was very hard. That was very hard. Yeah, really, really tough. I think having children helped, because then I joined another community of other people who had children. So I wasn't planning on starting a family so soon after I was only 23 when I got married. So I thought, oh, we'll wait a while before having children. But actually, I felt God say, no, now's the time to have children. So we had our 2 years into the marriage, we had our first baby. And actually, that's where I really felt like a missionary, was actually when I left YWAM to be full-time mum. I felt more like a missionary than ever before, because I was building relationships all the time with my neighbours, with my community groups, with my networks. And I felt like God used, it was using me quite a lot in those relationships and in that place, as being full-time mum, and then volunteering, because my husband then was the children's worker at Elim. So I did lots of volunteering with him. I started running alpha courses, which were amazing for other families with other, not just mums, but the idea was for mums in the daytime with kids, but lots of other different people would come along. And that was amazing. I loved running alpha. And it was really from there that God for Kids sprang, because we had these people coming to faith, or exploring faith for the first time, sometimes for the first time. And then they would have their children, and their children would ask them questions. And they were like, well, I don't know. I'm exploring this for the first time myself. I have no idea how to answer my children's questions. And they would look for resources. And a lot of resources would assume a level of Christian experience or awareness that these children just didn't have. They didn't know what church was like, never been to church. They didn't know, if somebody said, turn to Psalm 23, what does that mean? They didn't have any place to put that bit of information. And that's really why I started writing God for Kids, for those parents, really, to help them share what they were learning with their children, assuming no prior knowledge or experience of any Christianity.
I know one of the first church where we were doing full-time children's ministry, one of the things that became quite apparent very rapidly was when we had, because we were doing infant baptisms, which was a form of Baptist, was an interesting mental thing, but actually our vicar was great. So we saw it as an opportunity to show them Jesus. This isn't going to save your children. They need a faith with Jesus. It was great. But actually we had 600 people turning up once a month, 3 different families with all their extended families, 600 people. And we had to start from a place of, they have probably never been to church for the last 3 or 4 generations, unless someone's getting married, buried, or maybe christened. If it's not those 3 things, they probably never stepped foot in a church. So part of our specific job was to completely write the service that they came into. And we wrote from the position of somebody who's never stepped through a door. So even outside the building, because we don't go outside, we stand behind the massive wooden oaken doors. So we put big signs outside and got people standing outside. So there was actually a greeting and a welcome of, here's the door, come through. Not to condescend or be patronizing, but if you've never been to a church and you don't know what you're supposed to do, how do you know what you don't know? Is that daughter?
Yes, I've got a daughter who is home and well today, knocking on the door.
That's fine.
Just give me 5 minutes, okay? Just give me 5 minutes. She's all right. Who, honestly, you tell a kid to go and watch telly for an hour and they don't want to. What's that all about?
Yes, quite possible. Been there. Right, so you started writing God for Kids off the back of the Alpha course. You're finding yourself wanting more, I suppose, more answers more quickly and easily available to people, because there's only one of you to answer a question. But if you've got a resource of some sort, whether it's a book or what have you, all of a sudden you can help more people more quickly. So what is God for Kids? And you've given us an overview at the start, but what is God for Kids actually doing? How does it actually equip people?
Well, essentially it's like a devotional for children, but put into app format, because I thought as an app it will reach more children than it would do. The state of publishing in the world, especially in the UK, state of Christian publishing, especially 12 years ago when I was starting, there wasn't really any hope of getting published. And even if you do get published, the amount of children you're going to reach, I thought I would probably reach more through an app. So I found a fabulous app company called Apt, who were willing to make it for me, and decided to invest the inheritance that I had into that instead of something else. So yeah, essentially it's a devotional, but it's based on the character of God, because that was a little, I guess, gap in the market. It was an area that wasn't covered by other devotionals that I saw out there. And lots of them were based on values and Christian values. And then there's lots of Bible stories and traditional Bible stories. I didn't want to reinvent the wheel, but I loved teaching about the character of God when I was with YWAM. I had to teach it to teams who were coming on short-term mission, which meant I had to study it myself. And it was that in New Zealand in my mid-20s that I discovered a gift that I didn't know I had. And that was the gift of, I guess, being able to just open the Bible, see things in there, and unpack that to other people in a way that made them go, wow. So that was an amazing thing to discover. I discovered a love for studying the Bible that I hadn't realized was there, and a love for teaching it to others, and especially for teaching it to children in a way that they can understand. So one of my mentors at one point said, "You make the sublime simple," is what he said. Take these strange abstract concepts and make them simple. And I think I'm quite a concrete person. On the Myers-Briggs scales, I'm very definitely an S for sensory. This, I would see, I'm quite concrete. I'm not that abstract as a person. So, and children are not abstract at all. They like things that are concrete. So I think I can talk about things like who made God, and where does God live, and why can't I see God? And I can communicate. I can unpack that in a way that children connect with. So that was pretty cool, discovering that.
Yeah. I have a phrase I use frequently. I believe we're all made on purpose and with purpose, because I think we've all got inherently good values, but sometimes it takes us going to the other side of the world to realize who we really are, because we get out of our norm, our I suppose, like the standard lives that we sort of create around us. We like buffers of simplicity and comfort. But going to New Zealand, other side of the world, all of a sudden you've got all the stuff gone, which is scary, as you shared, but actually out of that, then we kind of, it becomes easier to have a need to depend more on God when all the things that we built to depend upon are suddenly vanished. Now all we have is God that's left. But that's not a bad place to be, because you could discover gifts about taking a sublime and making it simple.
Yes, definitely. I do think I had to go to the other side of the world to discover certain things. Yeah, absolutely.
So God for Kids is an app. What ages is it suitable for? And how do you go around getting hold of it? What's the deal with it all?
4 to 8 really is the sweet spot. You don't need to be able to read, because the voice reads aloud with you. But yeah, 4 to 8. And you just get it on the App Store. Go to Google Play or the App Store. So it will come up with God for Kids Family Bible Devotional, I think, and you can download it. And then there's my website, which is God for Kids app. And it's all words. Okay, I'm not a fan of putting the number 4 for the word 4. Okay, that was cool in the 90s. It is not cool anymore. It is GODFORKIDS, God for Kids app.com. And on the website there's some free printables. I run a charity, so we do loads for free. The app's free. There's download printables for free. We have a blog that's full of there's some great blogs in there that are really helpful for grown-ups and children's workers to help them answer children's questions. And that blog's free, obviously. Most blogs are. And then we have a shop as well where we sell the books, and sales from the shop help to keep the charity running. So if anybody wants to buy our books, if you buy them from me directly, that will help our charity so much more. We'll get a couple of pounds per book rather than 50p per book, which is what we might get through Amazon or Eden, or even less through Amazon. I think I get about 25p per book from Amazon. You spend $7.99, I get 25p. Whereas if you come to my website, you only have to spend $6.99, and I get about 50% of that. So that's much better.
Yes.
Oh, the charity does, not me personally.
I got a few books on Amazon, and yeah,
I actually don't make any money from my book.
No, we don't. Not
Sorry.
on Amazon. I think you'll make about 20p on our latest book, on the Radio and the Miracles of God, because we're not trying to make a profit out of it. We want to tell a story. So it was literally the smallest rounding figure I could find on Amazon that it would let me have. So I think it's literally about 18p or something we make on a book, which, it was never about that. It's about telling a story that God is alive and at work today. And I'm assuming that in some way that's what your app is doing. It's God is real, he's vibrant, and he's very much at work in your life.
Yeah, and the app can reach every single country in the world. It does reach. When I look at who plays on it, every country in the world has somebody playing on it, and that's great for countries that don't have Christian resources, especially for children. And we're working really hard to translate the app at the moment. We've got about 8-9 languages half translated, so we're trying to finish them off at the moment and push that over the line. We're just trying to apply for a few grants to get the funding to finish that at the moment.
So cool.
But then we'll be able to reach people in their own language as well. Although, having said that, a lot of people appreciate having apps that teach them English, and because mine has a voiceover, a lot of people in other countries have commented that they use it to help their children learn English because they can follow along and hear it at the same time.
We haven't put videos like this for a while. We have something called the Berry Bunch, that's about 1,000 resource videos that we made as a family. But we always made a point of transcribing it and putting accurate captions, not automated. It was proper. And we had a guy from Italy who was trying to learn English as a Christian who knew who I was. He's like, I love reading, because I did 2-minute videos. So it's 3 minutes or less, 2 minutes 59 or less. I love them because it's quite short, because it's quite hard work on the brain trying to learn a new language. But I can actually read what you're saying, and I'm actually learning English. And he loved it because he could speak English, but it was just helping him improve, because it was little 3-minute segments, really. And he was like, oh, I'm learning English, but like Christian English as well. It was really cool. Which just sounds like what we can do. I guess you could choose a language then on your app. Let's do it in French or Spanish or German or whatever languages you've got.
Hopefully, once we've got them released. With the German is already released. But yeah, we just need that little extra push to get us over the line to get all those languages. We've been working on them for ages. Cool.
You've met my wife very happy because she loves German. We watch a film, it's like, oh, what language is it in? English. It's only in English. There's no other languages available. It's not allowed because she's multilingual and we're not. But anyway, it's fine. Right. Thank you, Joanne. If we want to go to your app, you've given us, yes, right. So it's godforkidsapp.com.
Yes. Yeah, that's my website.
I like stuff that does what it says in the tin. I'm with you on the 4 as a word, not a number. I mean, it's funky cool on a poster, but it's not so good when you're trying to type it in. And then you're on the Apple and the Google store. Just remind us, if people are searching for that on the App Store from Google or Apple, what is it comes up with again?
If you just type in God for Kids as 3 separate words, it should then automatically come up God for Kids. And I think it says Family Bible Devotional or something. We've been around for a while, so we do tend to come up. When the early days, you could type in God for Kids and it wouldn't show you it, which was mad. It took a while to get the algorithms recognizing us. So I picked the name God for Kids because I thought that's what people might search for if they want to know about God. But I've since learned better that SEO is a lot harder than that.
Yes,
but that's the name we've got.
we do as simple as we can, but sometimes the forces of the internet like to conspire against us. But that's part of the fun. Joanne, thank you for your time. I know you've got a child who might need some attention. But yeah, I love hearing about stuff that's designed to help children, having worked in full-time ministry for a while. And it is really hard to resource. But I think we do need to accept as a nation, are we Christian or not? Well, it's not really the right answer. I think we need to accept what is true, which is that we're probably 3 or 4 generations of people who've never stepped foot in a church for any kind of faith experience, religious experience, yes, births, deaths, maybe, and marriages, but actually as a seeking faith thing, I think we do need to be realistic to the fact, the Billy Graham, when he went out and did what he did, he was speaking to millions of people who already had a foundation of there is God, there is Jesus, there is the Holy Spirit, there was foundations, whereas now, not in Sunday, I remember at primary school, I'd learn about the Bible. I'd learn about it from teachers. We didn't have to have the vicar because that's what they did. But actually now it's not the same, and we need to start from where we are at in a society. Are we Christian or not? It's not really the relevant question. Do people know who Jesus is? Probably not. So let's get on with it, which is exactly what you're doing. So fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne.
Yeah, and thank you. Encouragement, and keep doing what you're doing. And thank you for all the people you're reaching to.
That's fine. www.godforkidsapp.com, all real words, and you'll find Joanne and her charity and all the stuff for you and your family. Thank you, Joanne.
Thank you very much.